Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hardcore Soft Skills Podcast Skill Coaching Series. My name is Yadi Caro, and in this series, I will be distilling down into actionable items the lessons you have learned on this podcast. One of the most popular episodes was my interview with John Kotter, author of multiple books and basically the authority of change management. If you are in a change management role, you probably have heard about his 8 steps process. If you have not, I'll summarize, but first, let me set the stage. You may have been in a situation where your company or organization is undergoing some sort of big change ahead, a big transformation. What many people think happens is that, well, leadership announces a big change that is either adopt, go through it, or else. Then a change magically happens, at least that is the expectation. Or most likely, it just failed miserably. Many of us blame, well, that there was just not enough leadership to get the buy in. But this is really the reason. Change requires both top down and grassroots support. So here are some steps to follow to make it a reality. And these are basically the steps detailed by John Kotter. So, number one is creating urgency. This means that you inspire people to think about a different future needed now. I have seen how showing the opportunities your organization or team is missing because of the lack of change is a great way to help create that urgency. Hopefully, the sense of urgency does not come in the shape of either we do this or we are done. But if you don't ensure people are aware about the need to change, we think, why are we doing this? And the change comes way slower, if at all. Number two, build a guiding coalition. You cannot just start with an individual. A change requires a group of people, not a bunch of people, but a group of people who can help craft the vision and the path to make it happen. And here is John Kotter talking specifically about how to create a guiding coalition. What is a good advice you have for people who want to create a good guiding coalitions? Are there certain attributes of those people that should be part of that?
Yes. The inclination of most people, we have found, executives, because of the way they've been brought up in the managerial world, is to go to people they know and they trust, number one, which means they go to the same people again and again and again for projects. Number two, to keep the group small, because it just seems logical. It's a lot easier to manage a small group than a large group. And to keep it at one level, depending upon the nature of the project. It could be anywhere from the executive level to senior middle management on down to some frontline people. What we have found is larger, more diverse groups, as long as they want to be involved, number one, and number two, that you create the context in which they can effectively operate. Or in other words, you provide the context in which the leadership is good to make this group function, are much more powerful. You've got more brains in there with more information from more. So you want people from all of the silos and from multiple levels, which is really hard for people who have been raised in a traditional managerial context to understand why you'd ever want a senior vice president and his executive assistant in the same group. Well, they live in different worlds. They have different connections to people. They've got different data. And if you can get that group to work well with more data, more connections for execution, they can be quite spectacular. So people who want to do it, diverse group, larger group, we work with 40 and 50 typically. Mm-hmm. And obviously some leadership capabilities in there. Although what we find over and over again is people surprise you. If you create a good context, somebody that has never shown any leadership potential suddenly start showing it. Not always, obviously, but it happens. And those are some of the characteristics of a really effective guiding coalition.
Number 3 is forming a strategic vision. Something needs to change, but if we do not know what type of change is coming and how it will look like, we become resistant to it and distrustful. So make sure to form a clear vision to help understand the why and the what. And then number 4, communicate the vision. This is so often neglected because we assume that if we mention it a few times and then it's magically passed along and understood. We need to make a plan to communicate constantly and clearly. Number 5, remove obstacles. What are the obstacles? It can be processes you have in place now that do not align with the expected vision. You may need to create roles to support that vision, training that is required. By removing obstacles and creating the structure for change, you can make it easier to adopt. Step 6, or number 6, is to create short wins. Any success that you have through small transformations, people feeling the impact and benefit of adopting the thing, is worth to be celebrated and communicated across the board to build enthusiasm. Step 7 is building on change. If you use a new process to launch something, try implementing it in other products. If a team is adopting a new way of working, make sure it's also adopted by a few more teams. Keep building the change before declaring victory. And step 8 is to make sure the new change becomes part of your organization. Is it captured as the new process? Is it reflected as part of values and the way ahead? Otherwise, instead of true change, it may be just a fad that will pass. Let me know if you have tried any of these steps in this episode and if these have worked for you. Go to my website, hardcoresoftskillspodcast.com, and sign up for my newsletter. And while you are there, please leave a review. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening today. Before you leave, make sure you go to my website, hardcoresoftskillspodcast.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Then go to the review tab and leave a review. It is the way to ensure this podcast is discovered by others. Remember that by learning soft skills, you make your hard skills work for you. See you next time.